Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today to discuss our careers in biotech with our esteemed panelists this morning. Thank you very much. I just want to let you know that this webinar is brought to you by the CSU Biomanufacturing Consortium, a collaborative effort between Cal State Long Beach, Cal State Fullerton, Cal State LA, as well as Biocom Institute, California Institute. Today, I want to get started with our first speaker. Vicki Brannock is an active partner from Biocom in this consortium. She's the Senior Director of Workforce Strategy and Innovation at Biocom Institute, California. Biocom Institute is a nonprofit organization dedicated to developing and promoting a skilled and diverse pipeline of talent for the life science sector. She works with industry and education leaders to create a viable, sustainable programming focus for K-12 teachers, training, employee upskilling, and career change and leadership development. Welcome, Vicki. I think you're on mute, Vicki.
Thank you so much, Anjali, and thank you all for joining us today. I wanted to provide a little bit of information to you regarding the life science industry. So we're going to spend about 15 minutes kind of going through some information I hope that you will find valuable. Just make sure we can move to the next screen. Okay, so I wanted to tell you a little bit about who's Biocom Institute. So we're a nonprofit organization established by the Biocom Trade Association, which has over 1,700 members across California, and who employ over 500,000 people in various positions in life science. We collaborate with industry, colleges and universities, city and county governments, and other stakeholders to provide a diverse talent pipeline. Our work focuses on workforce training, research and education, professional development, and we provide a career hub and curated industry resources. So I want to spend a few minutes going over some information and statistics we hope you'll find helpful. And if we have time at the end, we'll take some questions. Please feel free to put your questions in the chat, and we will try to get to all your questions if time allows. So the life science industry has seen substantial growth over the last decade. In California, we've attracted over $6 billion in funding and generated over $413 billion in overall business output. Despite recent economic challenges, we've increased direct employment in the industry of over 26,000 jobs, and we're talking about California. Many companies today are adjusting after the pandemic, and so as they refocus on their core missions, some were required to shift focus to develop COVID testing or drug manufacturing by the federal government and increased hiring in those areas. Now that they're able to return to their normal business model, we're seeing some resizing happening, and we expect that in 2024 it'll be a very strong year for our industry. So what is life science exactly? We've broken it down into 6 subsectors. Biotechnology. Biotechnology is a technology based on biology. Biotechnology harnesses cellular and biomolecular processes to develop technologies and products that help improve our lives and the health of our planet. There are many examples, but some you may use every day, right? So beer, yeast, yogurt, yeah, beer brewers are using biotechnology. Biopharmaceuticals. Biopharmaceuticals are complex medicines made from living cells and organisms, often produced using cutting-edge biotechnological methods. Medical device and equipment. Medical device manufacturing includes all aspects of fabrication of a medical device, from designing a manufacturing process to scale up to ongoing process improvements. Some examples are knee replacements and other reconstructed devices, contact lenses, and such. Research and testing. We define this as medical laboratories and testings usually done at the colleges and universities. Scientific research is manufacturing of instruments like test tubes and microscopes. And then food and agriculture biotechnology. This includes new food product development and manufacturing in addition to traditional agriculture and fertilizer development and biofuels. So California has over 16,000 companies across the state that are engaged in one or more of these subsectors. This represents almost 500,000 workers in the life science field, with another 1.19 million additional support jobs. Last year, almost 30,000 jobs were added to with an average wage of almost $132,000 per year. So this is a thriving sector that has living wage jobs. So today we're going to be focusing on life science in the Los Angeles and Orange County areas, and this is what we've defined as those particular areas. So let's talk a little bit about the LA region. The LA region is emerging. That means that we have some fast growth and commitment from elected officials in the area. There are almost 4,000 life science companies within the Los Angeles region that employs close to 100,000 workers with an average wage of about $93,000 a year. Orange County has over 1,800 companies with about 63,000 employees with an average wage of about $108,000 a year. So who's hiring? Over the last 3 years, these are the top companies for hiring in Los Angeles and the Orange County region. You'll be hearing from several of these companies today in our panel sessions later on, but let's take a closer look at some of the occupations, the job titles, and the overall growth of the subsector. So here you can see the top 3 occupations by category. And I want to draw your attention to the fact that manufacturing takes place in most of these subsectors in one form or another. So medical laboratory technicians, phlebotomists, team assemblers, sales representatives, you can see that many of the job occupations are actually things that are pretty common across all industries. Orange County is also experiencing growth in each category, but it has traditionally been strong in medical device and equipment manufacturing and sales. So you can also see an increase in food and ag biotechnology jobs. While not particularly large numbers, we believe that there will be continued growth in this area as technological advances continue. So what is biomanufacturing? And why do we see that biomanufacturing in most of the subsectors? It's because biomanufacturing, in its essence, is the manufacturing component of the biotechnology industry. So some of those examples are vaccines, pharmaceuticals, biofuels, and cosmetics. So looking at life science as a whole, let's break down a few of the job classifications and hiring numbers from the last 4 years. Some of these jobs require advanced degrees, especially scientists and researchers, engineer and data scientists, while others require various levels of education from AA degrees and certificates to undergraduate degrees. So what kind of educational attainment and average wages are we looking at for jobs in life science? Some jobs are entry level and only require an associate's degree or even a high school diploma. Keep in mind that these jobs are from postings, so these are minimum requirements. Many employers like to see some sort of certificate or certification to supplement these minimum qualifications, and they may ask for experience in addition to education levels. Much like other sectors, there are jobs in administration, in sales, materials handling, that do not necessarily require much more than minimal levels of education, although some familiarity with the sector is really desirable. So you can see in this chart the experience levels that employers would ideally like to see. Many jobs have listed experience of between 2 to 6 years, but this can sometimes be offset with additional certificates like biomanufacturing application certificate program through the Cal State system. And again, these are based on current job postings, so minimum requirements. So I wanted to take you through job titles in biomanufacturing, the biomanufacturing facility, and what education levels they are looking for. So the jobs here that are highlighted in green, these are jobs that are traditionally advertised with a high school diploma and a certificate preferred. This next set of the next set in blue is ones that they advertise for associate's degrees. These in the purple are jobs that require a minimum of a bachelor's degree. And then these are the jobs that are the master's degree PhD jobs. So you can see the majority of jobs in biomanufacturing really are at the undergrad to high school grad to undergrad level. And of course, manufacturing technicians are one of the highest level for an entry job that you can get. There's many jobs in biomanufacturing that requires a lot of people to do the technical assistance on being able to manufacture products. So manufacturing technicians are definitely a place that you can start if you don't have that higher degree and if you want to start off at an entry level. So what are some of the educational opportunities? So if you're interested in pursuing a career in life science and you need more education, I'd like to recommend that you look into the Cal State Biomanufacturing Science and Application Program. And we'll be posting some more information here on the site for you to take a look at and in the chat box. And then this program is endorsed by Biocom Institute, and it was developed by Cal State Long Beach, Cal State Los Angeles, and Cal State Fullerton, and it's taught by industry professionals. There are also several biomanufacturing programs at the local community colleges in our area, and I would highly suggest that you take a look and see if some of those programs are available if you want to explore further the more technical aspects of the job and get some hands-on lab experience. So thank you so much for taking a little bit of time to hear this. I don't know, Linda, if there are any questions in the chat. No questions for us? If you have anything, and if you think of any questions as we go along through through our webinar today, please just go ahead and put those into the chat and we'll try to answer those as we go along or at the end of the program. So let me stop sharing my screen here. So I'd like to introduce you to the moderator for our first panel, Exploring Career Journeys, Paulina Fonville. As the Biocom California Institute's program manager, Paulina oversees the development, management, and implementation of the Life Science Young Leaders and Veterans in Life Science Fellowship programs. Through these programs, Paulina supports and empowers veterans, transitioning military personnel, underrepresented college students, and job seekers, providing professional development resources and networking opportunities to thrive in the life science industry. Paulina is a first-generation Latina and military spouse who has a passion for serving others and aims to support a more diverse and inclusive workforce. She holds a Master's of Science degree from the University of San Diego State University. So welcome, Paulina.
Thank you so much, Vicki, for the kind introduction. And it is a pleasure to be here with everyone. And I'm really excited and eager to introduce you to our career panel, who are some great talented speakers, and will be sharing their stories about their journey and their career path in the biotechnology industry. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Colleen Burns. She is the Vice President and Site Head of Grifols Biologicals. We also have Blanca Cohen. She's the Director of Quality Systems at One Legacy. And Nicolette Pollock, Dr. Nicolette Pollock, who is a scientist of bioproduct research and development at Eli Lilly and Company. So thank you, everyone, and let's welcome our panelists here. And I would like to start with our first question. Tell us more about yourself and what defining experience or moment shaped your career path in the biotechnology industry. And I will go ahead and start with Colleen. You're unmuted, Colleen.
Sorry, I double-clicked. Thank you, Paulina, for the introduction. Hi, Thank you for having me on your webinar today. My name is Colleen Burns. I'm the Vice President and Site Head for Grifols Biologicals located here in the Los Angeles area. Grifols has about 950 employees located here, even though we have sites all around the world as well. Grifols processes human plasma that people donate into life-saving therapies. And I would say one of the defining moments for me in developing my career and my path, especially in the biotech industry, was really just that passion for helping individuals, knowing that what I make every day, what my team makes, is out there in the hospitals and the pharmacies, helping the children, helping people live, just a normal life, which without our products wouldn't allow them to have that opportunity to live a normal life. So it's something that gives me great pleasure and job satisfaction on a daily basis.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing, Colleen. Blanca?
Hello, everyone. Thank you again for allowing me to participate in this panel and share my story. So before I had really determined that I was going to stay in the organ, eye, and tissue industry in which I work. So I work for One Legacy. We support the organ, eye, and tissue donation process. I like to say it's the magic behind the pink dot on your driver's license. Anytime someone passes away in one of the 7 local counties in Southern California, so we partner with over 200 hospitals and the local county coroner's offices to assess referral potential for the donation process. In my early career, I started out immediately after graduation as a recovery technician. So I would head out into the field and I would recover the corneas from the folks who had said yes to the donation process. And with that being said, it really fed into my independent personality, and I'm highly introverted. And so with that being said, I loved working on my own schedule and not having a team that I had to rely upon. And so my supervisor at the time identified, a certain something within me to really encourage me to say, you know what, Blanca, that's great. You're doing a fantastic job working independently, but I really think that you have potential to work well with a team. You may not want to transition, but I'm going to assign you to work on a team project with to now expand upon your recovery experience to recover now bone, skin, the heart valves, etc. And at that point in time, I was a little, mistrusting, like, I've got a great pattern, I've got a great rhythm. But it was really that individual identifying a talent within me that I didn't see within myself, and to trust the process and to trust that I was going to be successful. And without question, I loved working with the team. I'm now in a leadership role, 20 years later. But it's really allowing yourself to, I think, be pushed outside of your comfort zone a little bit to try something different. And that was definitely a defining moment for me. Thank you for allowing me to share.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Blanca. And next, Nicolette.
Thank you so much for the introduction and for having me here as well. My name is Nicolette Pollock. I am currently an advisor at Eli Lilly and Company. Previously, I was a Cal State LA alumni in the MORE programs, which is the Minority Opportunities in Research program, where I was a part of Dr. Edith Porter's laboratory studying innate immunology. In my current role, I actually just joined this month, so I'm working in formulation at Eli Lilly, which is basically formulating chemicals for late-stage drugs and clinical trials.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing a little bit more about your backgrounds. And something that I was hearing here, Colleen, you mentioned that you were attracted to the bigger mission of being able to help individuals. And then Blanca, you mentioned being pushed to your next role and being challenged. So it's a perfect segue to my next question. So could each of you please share what specific strategies did you use, or what did you focus on to advance in your career or take on new leadership roles? And Colleen?
Sure, I can start there. I would say that, you know, I've been in this industry for 26 years, and you know, in order to get to where I'm at today and really advanced my career, not only did I focus on mastering the role that I was in, but I didn't just look at upward growth. I was looking at lateral growth so that I could learn more of the breadth of the industry, of the company, of the business, and I didn't see making those lateral moves as something negative. I saw it as an opportunity to learn more about the business, to really add more tools to my toolbox to make myself a more valuable team player for the business.
Thank you. Blanca?
I think, how shall I phrase it? It was definitely beneficial transitioning into that team role. And, you know, I'm a strong believer that you end up finding a career that really ties into your personality type. And so as the youngest of 3 children, you know, my older siblings always kind of told me what to do. But with my friend group, I would always tell them what to do. And so working in that team dynamic, it really allowed me to guide and navigate the team, figure out the most efficient way so we can get to lunch. And it was really an enjoyable experience. And so eventually the natural progression towards, here's an opportunity to take on a leadership position. And I am so appreciative always to that first team that I worked with, because navigating as a new supervisor, figuring out communication skills, etc., it was a two-way pathway for us. And I always trying to impress upon folks is, it's okay to admit you don't know something. I'm a forever student. I'm always reaching out to resources, to individuals who have more experience than myself. How have you navigated this type of situation before? I have an idea or two. Can we pitch around and brainstorm? What are your thoughts on it? And I can appreciate engaging with folks who have a very different personality type than myself, because oftentimes they're going to have a much different perspective on how to deliver messaging, how to roll out a new implementation, etc. And so I highly encourage to, you know, find individuals who are opposite of your personality type and thought process, and that'll continue to challenge your growth.
Thank you. Nicolette?
I'm very sorry. May you repeat the question?
Yes. Could you please share any specific strategies you use to advance in your career and take on leadership roles?
Thank you so much. So currently I am an advisor at Eli Lilly, which is an entry-level scientist role. But I would say in terms of leadership throughout my PhD experience, it would just say just trying to gain different experiences, joining different organizations or clubs. I was a part of several different nonprofits during my PhD studies. And so I did start at associate levels or as a member of these different organizations. And just through the years of being in these organizations and wanting to connect more to the student body, I was able to leverage my way into more senior positions. One of the roles that I was in was a president of the Graduate Women in Science. And so just really being active and engaged in your community outside of your studies.
Thank you so much. And something that I heard and I want to hone in is all of you mentioned the importance of being able to push yourself and go out of your comfort zone, but also leveraging your connections and being able to reach out to others and your network and be able to seek out those new opportunities and ways to be challenged. So my follow-up question is, for people here who are still thinking or aspiring to grow in this biotech industry, how can they start networking, and what would be your advice to start networking? Pauline, would you like to start?
Sure. I do believe that networking is definitely key to establishing yourself in the industry. I think it's a little bit difficult for people that are introverted like myself. You know, that's not my preference. It's not my go-to, but it's something that I do have to, you know, step outside of my comfort zone in order to network. But just, you know, even though some of those numbers that Vicky was presenting earlier seem like, oh my gosh, there's just a ton of positions and people in these roles here within the Southern California region. In all actuality, the industry is pretty small, and you do start knowing who's working at Edwards, who's working at Takeda, who's working at One Legacy. You know, it is a small industry. So as you do, you can join professional groups like ISPE, you know, some of these biocom, you know, groups, so that you can start to know people. And you really just, you know, make those friendships, or, you know, that could be on LinkedIn as well, just so that you have those names of people, introduce yourself, work with your counselors if you're still students, and they can help you get internships that will also help you to start knowing people in industry that will allow you, you know, that'll just help to open those doors, even if it's just a random conversation that you're having with somebody. We always have, you know, we also know a lot of people. So whether you know a lot of people in the industry yet, we do. And as you know, even if you just have, you know, that 1 or 2, 3 people that you're starting to build a connection with, we also will help to get you those recommendations and connections as well.
Thank you. Blanca?
That was a great response, Colleen. And I think to supplement that, utilizing social media or going to a company's website, you know, identifying who are key individuals in a role that maybe captures your interest, and maybe it's for longevity, but sending an introductory email. Hey, do you have time for a 10-minute, 15-minute chat regarding your organization? I'd love to learn about what a day in the life is like for you. And whether it's that individual or they'll connect you with someone else, and you know, maybe your message got stuck in a spam filter, but you cast the net a little bit wider, you know, and you send it to 5 to a dozen individuals. But really, at some point, somebody will return that communication. And as Colleen had mentioned, initiate that first contact, and before you know it, they're going to know someone, and maybe you have a question about a certain component or area within the organization, and a secondary area. Well, now you're going to have 2 contacts within the same organization. They're going to have different perspectives, different networks as well. And again, that opportunity to say, what does a day in the life look like? Because you can read a job description, and you can, you know, can you imagine what my recovery technician job description, you know, read versus a day in the life? And I'm engaging, you know, during the recovery process, so much different. So sometimes having that connection, just to hear, you know, what are your hours like? How do you feel at the end of the day? Is it physically exhausting? Is it mentally exhausting? You know, I think it's so helpful to really give you an insight of, now that I hear about it, this is what I thought, but is this something that I want to truly pursue at this point? Maybe it sounded cool, but now that I reflect in knowing my personality type, walking a day in the life, is this something that interests me, even just temporarily? Great. I know this is a stepping stone towards potentially a different pathway and direction. And I can, you know, recover for a couple of years. And that's exactly what I did, you know, before I transitioned over into a quality role. And I recovered for, give or take, about 5 years, and I've been in quality for 15 years. So again, when I graduated from school with a degree in biology, didn't anticipate heading into, you know, this industry whatsoever, but it was that initial stepping stone into the recovery realm, and then seeing, oh, wow, that role looks very interesting. Let me ask the QA person about, what do you exactly do? Oh, wow, okay, this sounds interesting. Oh, so you're not out at 3 a.m. Okay, I think I may start having an increased interest in heading in that direction. So definitely the outreach helps. I can recall while being a college student many years ago, and there was someone from the coroner's office who came to speak to our class, and they provided their business card, you know, and we have internships available. And I can recall holding on to that business card for weeks. and feeling intimidated. Well, what is that phone call going to sound like? What am I going to say? And I think even just going through the exercise of saying the words out loud, practice phone calls, with your friends or on your own. How would I phrase the questions? What questions are meaningful? What would I like the outcome of the conversation to be? What would I like to know at the conclusion of the conversation? I have learned the following. This is the hours, this is the commitment level, this is what training looks like. You can prep all of that prior to even making that first phone call. There's so many, test runs you can go through before you're set up for that first call. So I'm going to stop rambling, and Nicolette, it's on you.
I think these are great responses so far. I would say exactly what you guys are doing right now, attending different conferences, different webinars, reaching out to us and asking for our personal experiences, and maybe if there's something that we can help you with, any questions that you have about different industries, getting engaged in your university and different organizations. I think the first way I started making connections was I was actually a community college student. And so I joined the math and science program. And then through that, I was able to make connections where I did an internship and transferred to Cal State LA, tried to have good ties with the lab that I was in order to gain different experiences outside of the current lab. So my PI at the time, Dr. Edith Porter, provided me with the opportunity to do external internships. So I did one at Cedars-Sinai and made connections through that. And it's really just building on those connections and really making a good impression, asking the right questions, and really being engaged. And so what I did throughout my PhD and throughout my undergraduate studies was just joining as many different organizations I could, attending different conferences, and then looking at company websites and applying to different internships. So I think all of those things could be really helpful when trying to make connections.
Thank you. Great insight and feedback. And from a lot of these career panels, I've also heard that, your next opportunity also lands from the connections that you make. So always be open-minded and willing to make new connections and taking that first step to reach out. So thank you so much for your feedback. And then just thinking about, for those who are starting, maybe looking for entry-level positions, or maybe are, thinking of maybe some challenges or obstacles that they might be able to encounter, could you share with us if there were any challenges or obstacles that you've encountered along your career journey, and how did you navigate those?
Let's see. How did we navigate early career obstacles? I would say, try your hardest to not be intimidated by every line item that's on a job description, because that job description, or like whatever the description is of the posting, is something that is our whole all-encompassing desire for the employee, and what we expect even somebody that's been in the role for 2, 3, 4, 5 years to also adhere to. So, if you have a good portion of it, or you have some of it, or, feel free to still apply for that position if you have that, the bare minimum, which is, either a certificate or, your high school diploma or GED, or, maybe it wants a bachelor's and you are, 1 semester away from that, but you have 1 class and you're ready to still go full time. Still don't be fearful of applying for that, talking to your HR recruiter that's going to reach out and ask you, kind of be that first filter and say, you know what, I'm 1 class away. Just, you don't feel that what's on there is all encompassing. It has to be 100%. That's one bit of advice that I would say. And then I think the second one is also your first steps into industry do not define who you are for the rest of your career. We have done, ton of different positions, different roles, different experiences in our careers to get where we're at today. Nicolette, your camera's falling. There you go. And I think it's important to understand that it doesn't define you, your first role. I mean, for myself, I was a manufacturing technician as my first role, and I already had my chemical engineering degree. And it's just a stepping stone to just learn what it is about the business, the industry. Is it for you? Is it not for you? And you always have that opportunity to keep growing in your career as you see what other roles are, you know, maybe appeal to you more or meet your meet that kind of expectations of jobs, of what you prefer. Kind of what Blanca was saying is, oh, this role doesn't get calls at 3 a.m. I might like that role better, but you know, why not go ahead and start with some of those different roles first to truly understand the business. So again, it doesn't define who you are and where you're going to be long-term in your career. It's just a stepping stone.
Thank you. Blanca, would you like to add?
Definitely. I think I'm going to support two of Colleen's talking points. I think the first is the commitment and what you're willing to learn about the role outside of business hours. I can recall, and you know, I still have it now, carrying my little notebook around and referencing my notes and being at home studying and, okay, what are the acronyms again to quiz me? And just wanting to have that confidence and the competence in the material that I was learning. It was really something that just personally was near and dear to me, to just learn the role as quickly as possible, and not without pressuring myself on the job. But what more could I do, especially transitioning from a student schedule where you're in class full time and you're probably working as well, maybe a handful of part-time jobs, sometimes piecing things together. I remember transitioning into a full-time into the workforce and thinking, I've got all this time. I ran a marathon my first year, and I can just recall okay, I've got downtime. Let me go ahead and study about the industry that I had joined. In addition to that, after I had worked as a recovery technician for a number of years, there were a number of tissue recovery programs in the Southern California area. And it was the vision of the CEO of One Legacy to merge all of them into one, because we were calling the hospital on numerous occasions from different programs and just creating confusion for the hospitals. And so one by one, each of the tissue recovery programs merged into One Legacy. Well, I elected to transition away from home, which is, you know, Southern California, and I headed up to Northern California to stay with my parent company at a different recovery organization based out of Oakland. And I saw the opportunity to transition into quality, and I interviewed for the position. And, you know, I had been a go-getter all of my life, and, you know, usually everything worked out the way I had wanted. And I can clearly recall being declined the position. I remember the conversation. I remember the emotion behind it, you know, driving away and being like, they don't know what they're missing. Like, I've got potential. And that didn't stop me from having interest in pursuing the transition into quality. It turned into, okay, what elements should I start learning about? How can I utilize, you know, this new internet here and take advantage of online resources that were available, study tools, materials, trade organizations. I took certification courses so that could build on my knowledge base. So when the next opportunity presented itself to transition into quality, your girl got the role. And, you know, I'm happy to say that I've been in my current role as the director of quality here at One Legacy for the last 10 years. But definitely it wasn't, you know, the easiest of transitions. And it may have been like a setback, you know, for the ego, but I wasn't quite ready for the role. So I didn't say I'm walking away. It was a matter of, okay, what else can I learn? How can I build my knowledge base towards this? And then eventually transition into the position.
Thank you. Nicolette, would you like to add something else?
Yeah, I would just say everybody had really great answers. Just not being afraid to ask questions. We all started at a similar level. I started from community college, and I would have never really expected to go this far, although I dreamed to. And so just really asking questions and just not being afraid to do that. There's a lot of different things to learn, and I think everyone is really helpful within the process.
Thank you. So all of you have shared great tips and insights into how to be able to seek out those leadership roles and how to reach out to connections and build those connections. So when people are looking into companies and, as they're researching, could you share a little bit more about company culture and how does that play a role in creating an environment where women feel empowered to pursue leadership positions in biomanufacturing?
Okay, I'll start. I do think that there is there's still a little bit of an imbalance between women in biotechnology, biomanufacturing. But I do believe that we are definitely moving in the right direction towards balancing it. We strive very much to make sure that, when we are interviewing our, let's say, technicians, that they understand, yeah, there are some manual aspects of the job, but there's you have partners, and that it's none of it is outside of the scope of what a woman can do. It's about just putting yourself out there and saying, you're willing to work in that environment, which, can be cold. It can be a wet environment. It can be working a graveyard shift. It can be working weekends. So it's, it's really about, us as, all humans, not women, men, etc. It's just us saying, hey, we're all equal and we all can and are willing to do the same job, as long as, like I said, that we're all willing to do that job. So I think that is something that we try to do when we are recruiting, is to really share that the positions don't have, they don't differentiate. We're all capable. And, we have a lot of women in leadership positions here at Grifols. It's something that we strive to do. And as part of our social media, I don't want to say advertisement, but maybe education more so, we really try to have that face of the women out there as equally as the men.
Thank you.
So I have an interesting story. During the pandemic, one of the teams that was in my reporting structure included materials management and the facilities. And so we were received, because we facilitate the recovery process for organ, eye, and tissue donors on campus. We have dedicated recovery suites. So from an organ perspective, if you think of a hospital ICU, we have the exact same process, along with hospital ORs. We have them on campus as well. And so we needed to ensure that we were continuing to facilitate the donation process, because there were still folks who were in need of a life-saving organ transplant. And so we needed to ensure that the medical materials were still arriving on campus, getting to the facilities, et cetera. And so because we had a number of team members, who had COVID at the time and whatnot, staffing levels were fluctuating, et cetera. We wanted to ensure that we were supportive of the process no matter what. And so that included myself. And I was working alongside my central supply department 6 days a week, receiving the materials, working in the warehouse, carrying the boxes, facilitating the process to demonstrate that, especially as a leader, regardless of gender, that you're willing to work alongside your team members to accomplish the bigger mission. And it goes back to identifying company culture. What are the values of the organization that you work for? Are they values that align with your personal values? Go through that exercise. What is meaningful and important to you? And does the organization that you're interested in working with align with your value set? That is so important. And just as a leader, for me, I support a team of about 30 individuals. It's very important for them to know that I am here alongside of them. My team members work 7 days a week. And so on Sunday, we had a recent, weather situation here in Southern California. I came on campus just to make sure everyone was doing okay, that if everyone felt comfortable. If they didn't feel comfortable, which some of them didn't, head home. It's okay. We've got this. We have contingencies in place, but to ensure that the team felt supported. It's just, I think, very meaningful and something to look into when electing to work in a certain organization.
I really like that that piece that plug you gave, Blanca, about, as leaders, just we have to show that we're not going to ask our team to do something we wouldn't do ourselves. We will come in on the weekends. We will help, process. We will help move the boxes. We will help, do whatever it is. We've already done it. We've been in those roles, so we know how to do it. But we wouldn't ask them to do something that we wouldn't do ourselves. And we're here. I can tell you this week, I've been here, until 1 a.m. because we were having actually barbecues. So we're here on site, engaging with our teams that are working 24/7. We were here all day yesterday into the evening so that we could catch our swing shift. We're here all day on Saturday to hit both shifts, morning and night, for just to engage the leadership team with the folks on the off shifts, and just have that face-to-face spirit, alignment, building that networking, the teams, and so that they all feel supported.
Thank you, Colleen. Nicolette, would you like to add more to that?
Yeah, I think these are great responses so far. Throughout a lot of different companies, I do see a lot of females in leadership, which is really heartwarming and wonderful to see. I think there's also a lot of companies that have employee resource groups dedicated to women in leadership. And so those are different things that you could look at when trying to pick companies that you're interested in, and see whether they have those types of organizations. And even at the undergrad or PhD level, a lot of different resources and organizations geared towards women in science. And so I think there is a push and a lot more presence in the last decade. So I think that's really nice to see, and one of the things that you can look at when picking different companies.
Thank you. You all shared great resources and opportunities that people can seek as well in career advancement. So just personally, like in your roles and at your company, what does life-work balance, and is that what does that look like for you? And then is that something that is flexible, and what does that look like overall in the biomanufacturing industry? Colleen, you're muted.
I can go first. I can say that work-life balance is something that I've struggled to try to achieve throughout my entire career of 26 years in this industry. It's not the industry, it's just life in general of trying to figure out how to balance that. Being a working mom, being a working single mom, trying to, and I see a question in the chat, similar to this topic as well. I will say and share that there was a point as a working mom that I decided to take a step back into my, backwards in my career, or a step down, in order to be able to prioritize at that moment what I needed to prioritize. I'm hoping that everyone on this call can see that it did not deter me from achieving where I'm at today. I mean, I'm leading a site of 950 employees. But work-life balance is something that you have to prioritize yourself. We can, as leaders, we can strive to find that for our teams. We can strive to support our teams to do that. But nowadays, with you know, you have your internet, people take their laptops home, you take your phone home that has, you know, if you are on your phone all day, all night, you know, that's difficult for us as leaders to keep you off of your phone, to stop looking at emails, stop looking at messages. So it is something that I do think has to come from a personal prioritization, as well as, you know, to put that down and to share that as a culture that you support and create. I try very hard not to message my people in the middle of the night or in the evenings or very early, unless it's urgent and it's an emergency. But other than that, you know, even if you want to send emails, you know, you cannot, some people will put, you know, a note at the bottom of their email that say, hey, my working hours shouldn't dictate your working hours. So I do not expect, you know, a response from you until you're in your normal working hours. So it's really trying to share, you know, that I support the work-life balance, but it's definitely not something that I can force people to do. I think it's something that they have to find that balance themselves and what works for them. And I'm going to just give one more thing and then let Blanca and Nicolette talk. But, you know, really now with the opportunities for people to be able to work remotely, I think what I've also seen is people don't always have to do 8 to 5, you know, straight working hours to get their work done. They can, if their job function allows them to, you know, be able to, like, okay, I'm off for 2 hours in the afternoon because my kid has a soccer game or a volleyball game. I need to pick them up here. I need to go to doctor's appointments. And then they're just still doing their work later on in the evening just to get what they need to get done. And I still see that as really also supporting the work-life balance.
Thank you.
Colleen, I think that was a very authentic answer. So work-life balance, I'm going to share a little bit about my family. Very humble upbringing, not in the best financial situation. My father passed away, give or take, about 12 years ago. And so a youngest sibling, only one in a professional full-time career. And so a lot of reliance upon me to help out when, you know, times are a bit tough. And so it goes back to what are values and important items, you know, as you self-reflect. And for me, it has been financial stability. As a woman, one thing my parents instilled upon me is never rely upon a spouse. There is no guarantee you'll have a spouse. And so with that being said, it was make sure you are financially secure as best possible. So for me, financial security and planning for retirement, that is top priority for me. I'm a mother to 2 wonderful kiddos, 14 and 12. And so it is ensuring that there's a balance, but also knowing what my core values are. And it is financial stability for our family. And so it's, especially as my children are older, communicating and sharing, you know, mom, it's much easier for mom to take phone calls and respond to support the team remotely at home versus and interrupting dinner, for example, versus I always have compassion for the recovery technicians where I had started from that are leaving their family on holidays, weekends, etc., to go and facilitate that gift of donation. Much easier for me to take a phone call, kids. My teammates are driving away right now, you know, Thanksgiving dinner, for example. And so I've always tried to give them perspective that we are very fortunate to have family dinner X number of nights per week. You know, that's not always a dynamic and setup for everyone. In addition to that, I go through a reflective quarterly exercise where I think about, have I taken time off? How am I feeling? If not, let me make sure I've scheduled something out for myself, because I know with the team that I support, they're observing my behavior. What is the commitment that I'm demonstrating to them? So I check in with them. Let's talk about your time off coming up this quarter. Oh, but we have these projects and we're so busy. Guess what? We can make it work. I think it's very important for us to demonstrate the behavior that we would like to see. Sometimes you're walking alone and you're in senior leadership and they're like, oh, vacation again? It's okay. This might be a journey, but this is how we create change. And then I think, also add as another anecdote, you have to also identify your commitment when you take on different type of leadership roles. And so as a director of this organization, I know my commitment is to stop and drop if a regulatory entity shows up. And so my daughter, her first day of high school, she's my eldest child, was yesterday. And we talked about her outfit, what she was going to wear. I was going to drop her off at school, which isn't something that I do every day. And the day prior, Tuesday afternoon, guess who shows up in our Redlands office? And I'm normally based out of the Azusa office, the FDA. So at that point, my family is fully supportive and on board. They know, okay, we're kicking to the contingency plan. Dad's doing drop off, facilitating that process, etc. And it takes that support. It takes the support of your family and your team to ensure that you're able to navigate as needed. And my daughter was like, not a problem. Good luck, Mom. I hope everything goes well. I know this is really important for your organization and everyone who works there. And so I think it's just clearly communicating, with your support team, and then doing those self-reflective exercises as to how do you find balance? What does balance look like for you? And so, it's definitely a journey. And as you're at different stages of your life, and personally for me, as my children were at different ages, there were support pillars that I needed to rely upon much more than others. My spouse, we do have a nanny, my mom at periods of time. And, my mom comes with restrictions. She doesn't drive, so we can deliver and then we can pick up, but mom's not driving anywhere with those kids. And so it's really just identifying at whatever stage you are in your life, it could be seasonal, etc. What are the items that are meaningful to you and what do you value? But at the root of it, what are those core values? And very similar to what they were when I started early in my career, financial stability, they are aligned true to my core values today.
Thank you, Blanca. And we are getting close to time, but I do see we have questions in the Q&A. So I'll read the first question here because it's related to this topic. And Nicolette, you're more than welcome to keep adding as well. As a new mom who had to take a break from academia career due to lack of family support, I am finding it difficult to get back to work in the industry. Transitioning from academia to industry is difficult in itself, and with a short career gap, less than a year, is making it all the more difficult. Do you have any advice or tips for this person and also for women in this type of situation?
I think so much, and this may transition over to the second panel, it's how you present your information on the resume. Think about all of the logistics and what you have to cover as a new mom, organizing, time management. These are all skills that you can include on your resume.
Thank you. All right. Next question from our attendees here is, in your opinion, what are the most promising advancements or trends in biomanufacturing that could benefit from increased female representation and leadership?
Well, I'll jump in here and say that, as much as we want as women to, feel, at the same level, I don't believe, the trends in the industry, I think, are just that we're growing. It's not, I don't think it has a male female benefit either way. That's just my personal opinion. So we're growing. There's diseases that are constantly, coming to fruition that we have to try to solve and prevent and find diagnoses and find medicines or devices that can help patients. But my personal opinion is it doesn't, benefit one way or another if it's male or female. I think it's, an equal opportunity for everybody.
All right, thank you. And so just maybe in a quick few words before we finish this panel, what would be an advice that you can give to our early career professionals here who are aspiring to grow in this industry? And we'll go ahead and start with Colleen.
Sure. Advice. Like I said, just get your foot in the door. And you know, it's much easier from there. You know, don't be afraid to take a position that you're capable of doing, even though it may not be what you believe today is your dream job. Because, you know, until you're in there and you really are doing the different roles, you don't, you know, you don't know what truly what your dream job is in industry. So, like I said, just get your foot in the door, start learning the business, and, you know, see if it's the career industry that really will bring you that job satisfaction.
Thank you, Blanca.
So once your foot is in the door, don't stop asking questions and continue to be uncomfortable. Push yourself to try out new opportunities, work on a project, support a project, observe meetings, be a public speaker. Just do whatever you can to continue to challenge yourself so that you continue to have that internal growth.
Thank you, Nicolette.
I don't have anything to add. I think that it's been a great conversation so far.
Thank you. Well, thank you, everyone. We had amazing speakers here, and they had so much to share knowledge and just insights into the industry and just how to grow and advance your career in this industry as well. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you for joining. And I will now be passing it back to Vicky, who will be introducing our HR panel.
Thank you, Paulina, and thank you all so much. That was fantastic conversation. I really enjoyed some of the answers for that, and I think it really does dovetail nicely with our upcoming panel. So I'd like to introduce you to our panelists today for the Positioning Yourself in Career Success. Samantha Sale is the Director of Human Resources for Takeda Pharmaceuticals, and Angela De La Fuente is the Vice President of Research and Development for Edwards Life Sciences. Thank you both for joining us. And it would be great if you could tell us a little bit about your company and your role in the hiring process. So Angela, let's start with you.
Okay, so can you hear me? I was having
Yes.
major video and audio, so sorry if you saw me flashing on and off.
No, we can see and hear you, so perfect.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I work for Edwards Life Sciences. I've been there for 19 years, really kind of grew up there. So just to kind of take it a step back, Edwards Life Sciences is a medical device company with its headquarters here in Orange County. I was so happy to see in one of the first slides that Edwards Life Sciences is one of the top employers, you know, here in the area. So kudos to us. But really, I mean, we have a fantastic company. You know, what we do is we create implantable devices for cardiology type of diseases. So specifically, we make heart valves, bioprosthetic heart valves for our patients. And so, you know, here in the corporate, this is where all of our R&D teams reside. And plus some manufacturing. And there's about 5,000 people here on campus. And then worldwide, we have probably about 15 to 16,000 where some of our other manufacturing sites are. So I get to lead a group of 30 people, ranging from engineers, scientists, physicists to develop new innovations for our implantable devices. And so, you know, I have a really great portion of early innovation, super fun, but yet I have another, you know, helping to move it down the pipeline in order to give it over to our manufacturing and our other teams to bring it to commercialization. So fantastic opportunity.
Thank you so much, Angela. And Samantha, tell us a little bit about what you're doing.
Yeah, so Samantha Sale, I'm the head of HR for the manufacturing site for Takeda in Thousand Oaks, California. Takeda is a top 10 pharmaceutical company in the world, and it's over 240 years old. So it's pretty crazy story to have there. And at my site, we primarily manufacture biologics medications for people with rare blood diseases. But we're also tech transferring in, you know, new products. So we're getting new experience for cell therapy. So we have a steady group of patients that we support, but we're also expanding into new areas These are life-saving, life-altering medications, so they're really important for our patients, and the patients are really the center of everything we do.
Thank you, Samantha. And I think one of the important things about this industry that distinguishes it from some other industries is it really is, like you were saying, and we've heard this throughout the day, right? This is a mission-driven sector, and we're really we're solving issues. In other jobs where I was not involved in life sciences, I would always say, hey, you know what, we can calm down. We're not trying to cure cancer here, but here we're trying to cure cancer. We're actually trying to make a difference in people's lives and their health and in the well-being of the world in terms of climate change. There's a lot of things with food securities. There's just a number of issues that this sector in the life science sector and biomanufacturing are trying to solve. So if you're interested in that, in having that mission-driven sort of position, I think that this is an industry that people should definitely consider. And so with that, what are some of the skills and qualities that you all are looking for when you hire, when you're hiring candidates? So, and especially for maybe some of those more entry-level positions, maybe Samantha, you could start us off.
Yeah, I'm looking for someone who is a balanced individual, right? So especially early in their career, someone who can speak to the things that they've done, the initiatives that they've taken, the representation of who they will be in the workplace, right? And I'm very realistic that I can't expect the impossible. I can't expect super technical capabilities for someone who's early in their career, but I am looking for someone who's a whole person. Especially if I'm putting them in a technical role, I want to know that this is an individual who can communicate, who is self-aware, has motivation and the work ethic that I'm going to want to buy, right? You're really looking to sell yourself, make yourself a full candidate that I want to buy.
And Angela?
Yeah, I mean, so extremely similar to what Samantha said, really looking for someone, we get it that the technical breadth and expertise will not be there yet, but someone who's a learner, someone who is curious. If we've seen other experiences from a leadership standpoint, again, doesn't necessarily have to be at a job. You're from college, for your own community, what you've done. I mean, that really just shows your character, because we're looking for somebody who is going to want to learn quickly, take responsibility, and ultimately, problem solve, and then that will lead to, the technical depth that they'll want to gain, or whatever that role is, right? So.
And how important do you feel, so if somebody comes in or applies for a position that they might not have, and we heard this from the other panel too, right? Don't worry about every single thing that you see necessarily on a job application, because there might not, that's the ideal. But so what are some of the things that you feel like that people, if they don't have any experience, that they should elevate in terms of their resume so that they can get noticed?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, work ethic, right? So somebody who goes and seeks opportunity. And even if it's just, to have a job to support yourself while you're going to college, talk about how you went and you found the right job. And maybe it was a difficult job. I think about my daughter who just got a job at Trader Joe's. It's a very hard place to get a job at. It's a popular place, but she demonstrated tenacity, right? So tell the person about how you had to be super tenacious to get this particular job, even if it has nothing to do with the role that you're seeking for, right? Find stories that connect an opportunity to demonstrate the value and the capabilities and the personality that you'll bring to the site or to your team.
Yeah, I mean, to add on to that, really pulling, I think, kind of mentioning it beforehand, what are those things that you did in your community to show leadership and that you can organize? Your job, my first job was fast food, right? Like, nothing great to speak about, but hey, it taught me how to be like a team player, all of those kind of things that go along with it. Any sports or any clubs or any other hobbies that you've been in where, that just shows, a more holistic view of a person. So get it, you're already gonna have to show some level of technicality, but there's those other qualities that kind of create a person that we would want to see grow in a career.
And do you all use, how do you go about your selection process? So I know you have a job opening, you probably have a lot of candidates for a particular job opening. So what are some of the things that you would recommend in terms of it? Are you using automated systems to first filter through things, or how can people get that resume in front of you for you to take a look at?
So I can take a stab at this. So I'm in R&D, so I don't necessarily filter at the HR screening part of it. So I've got a really close relationship with our recruiter. We really talk about what we're looking for, and not only just the technical, but again, sort of those soft skills, because that's really important to add, to fit into our culture on my team and across Edwards. And so, just through that portion from a business standpoint. But I also get a lot of resumes through LinkedIn, through my network. They know of the role I do. They've got their own kids, friends of friends, or whatever. And so, if there's something that can come to me that way, I love it. Right? I'm trying to pull from everywhere and trying to find the best talent possible.
So networking sounds like it's important. We'll get to that in a moment. But Samantha, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, most larger organizations are going to have a recruiting function, right? So I'd say one tip is to make sure, it's work, right? It's work to make your resume stand out. It's work to do it one time, but then to tweak it for every single job. But that's the thing that's going to differentiate you, right? So look at the job description, find buzzwords, make sure that you're either using synonyms or you're getting them directly in your resume. Find ways to show that the skills and the capabilities that we're looking for match. Do a little digging about the values or the culture of the organization. If you find ways to kind of pull those threads into your resume, all the better, right? So make sure that any minimum criteria, you're making sure to emphasize that you meet the minimum criteria, because that's going to be an automatic weeding factor, right? So if you don't do a good job of making sure you can deliver those minimum criteria, you're never even going to get through the first round. So find those little opportunities to differentiate yourself and stand out.
And how important, I mean, this is a question I ask a lot to HR folks and get different answers every time. How important to you is a cover letter or something that can give up some sort of preliminary story about themselves? Cover letters have changed, right, or over the years, but how important is it now for a cover letter?
Well, it's not to me, but I'm not the first screener, right? So they have already been screened through kind of the general field of applicants by the time they get to me. So I'm really going to look for the interview and my first impression from the interview. But the resume is important, right? Don't have anything that stands out in a negative way. Don't have spelling errors, don't have formatting issues, right? And the more you can bring in the things that we're looking for in the job posting into the resume, the better, because that's your one-stop shop, right? So keep it simple, keep it brief, but keep it applicable to what we're looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say that I get to see very many cover letters. I don't necessarily think that's a standout per se, because people can say a lot of things that it's really hard. I think it's, as Samantha said, your resume, how do you make that shine? And you may have to alter your resume every time you apply for a role, right? To hit all of those keywords, et cetera, to reform or rephrase what, your experiences to what the role is looking for.
That's really helpful. And how do you all feel about industry certifications or those additional kind of stackable credentials and other things outside of a degree? What is Takeda and Edwards? How does your companies and how do you personally feel about those? Or do you feel like that they help to make a candidate more viable?
Yeah, I mean, I'll say they're nice to haves if it's not part of the job description, right? So it's certainly something that you can use to differentiate yourself, even if it's just organizations you volunteer with, or, it's certainly interesting and gives me a perspective of a well-rounded, maybe, a forward-looking individual who's seeking out, education experience. So it's definitely something that's interesting, but it's also not necessarily a deal breaker. So be careful of, I think I had really good feedback before of like, don't assume that you can't just because there's something in there that references a certification, unless it's really, really an essential part of the role. It's an optional, right? So especially with our early career roles, we're not expecting, a ton of additional certifications. So we're pretty open-minded. So don't feel limited by that. But if you think that there's something that might give you an advantage, that's an interesting factor to consider.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with what Samantha says. I mean, you don't need to overdo things. Because then it's kind of feels a little bit like you're just doing it to do it. There's no real passion or direction in why you're choosing it. Now, on the other side, it just means you're a learner, right? You are taking the time to continue education for yourself. So, but balance it, right? I feel like those extra things are great, but if you can already, when you're in university, do internships. Like, I think that's going to have a lot more impact than any additional certification you might take.
And so we have our Cal State program that is launching here, or that we've launched on just a general overview of the life science, the biomanufacturing landscape for those folks who might be interested, but might not have the formalized education. And so do you feel like that's something that if you're coming into an entry-level position, that would be something that you would look at and say, hey, I think kind of like what you said, Samantha and Angela, it kind of shows a commitment to like, I want to learn about this industry. And do you feel like that having that sort of certificate can help you to feel more comfortable about the person and them understanding sort of what they're getting into? Is that, would you look at something and weigh it in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it just adds to the story of the person, right? I really look at like the whole picture. And so, yeah, I mean, it for sure doesn't hurt. And again, gives you another perspective, as you think about the role and the company that you want to go to. So.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, I mean, it's one thing to put on the resume, it's another to be able to speak to it. So to tell the story of, I was really curious about the industry and, this was something that I could fit into my life at the time. And so I sought this out. It's how you represent the experience and the initiative that you took is also a big part of that. So.
Yeah, we heard one of the graduates from our program this week. We got to hear a little bit from her, and she had actually gone with her degree into healthcare, and then she saw that might not have been the right fit for her, and so she took the certificate program and was able to already get a job going into this field, and that sort of helped her to understand a little bit more about what the field was, and also gave her a little bit more of the technical expertise involved in that so that she was able to make that transition. So that's what I was wondering if, sometimes the degree doesn't tell the whole story, right? And so just having some of these certificates or even coming out of going into an entry-level position where you take a certificate program and you're able to then at least know sort of the nomenclature, the acronyms, all the other things that go along with life science, how to walk into a lab. Some of those things are sort of important. So I appreciate your response to that. I think, we're hearing from many companies now that certificates are becoming a little bit more important than they had in the past, because it, especially for entry-level positions, they're kind of rethinking, maybe we don't need a bachelor's degree, maybe a certificate might get you into that entry-level position. I know, Angela, your work is a little bit different, but I think at Takeda, you probably are looking at some of that too as well, aren't you, Samantha?
Yeah, absolutely. There's entry-level roles that no longer require a bachelor's degree, but if you have, some sort of additional, education or experience specifically to the industry that we're hiring for, then that's certainly going to be a differentiator.
That's awesome. So what are some of the red flags? Like as folks are putting together their resumes, what are some of the red flags that you would say, no, this probably is not going to fit?
I mean, resume, I can tell you for a resume, it's definitely some of the most basic advice, right? Like, don't make it messy. It needs to be clear. I'm going to actually talk about the interview if I can, because I think that there's some of my favorites to bring up in an interview. And, one of the things that I would say is be prepared. So make sure that you have, I even suggest like have a list of examples of things that you're proud of and look for opportunities to talk about those things depending on the question, right? So be prepared, think, reflect before you go into the interview, do your research, know who your interviewers are, know what their roles are, and then, listen in the interview. So I even tell people at the beginning, like, I'm HR, so I'm not going to get super technical. I'm telling you cues, right? I don't want a bunch of technical information because that's not going to be what I'm evaluating. I'm going to be evaluating something else. So it's that paying attention to what people are saying and what they're asking. Also, one thing I would say is be specific. So one personal thing that I see a lot and I look for even in the most professional experienced individuals are not giving me actual examples. So if I say, tell me about a time when, I want an actual example. And if you make an actual example sound like a theoretical, then you're losing out. You're losing out on the credibility of saying this specific time when this happened, right? So make sure you're very clear, and please don't say we unless you're specifically talking about a group. Because if you say we, I cannot assess you. That we is like a comfortable, automatic nervous response, and I can't evaluate you on weak statements. And if I say, that's great, tell me about what you did, and you still use we, then you weren't listening and you're still not being specific. So those are some of my deal breakers.
Yep. So on my side, okay, so from a resume standpoint, I mean, I think when it comes to an entry-level role, I don't, I'm not looking so hard. I'm probably looking for what are, maybe what are the technical skills that they've built up in college. Again, if they've had an internship or some other leadership roles, that's really great. So please put down all of those things. And it can be very simple, and I'm okay with that. But once I get to like the higher roles, I mean, now I'm seeing 3 or 4 pages. Please don't do that. Please. So I know you probably had a lot of publications if you're if you're going in that direction, but that's okay. We can talk about it during the interview process. So really seeing more than 1 page is very difficult for me, and I just kind of blank out after that. But Samantha touched on the interview, which is probably like where you see all kinds of, like, this is the opportunity for you to shine and talk about yourself. And it's, don't talk about theoreticals. The way we interview here in Edwards is purely that. Give me a real life example. What did you do? What happened? And what did you learn? So you've got all kinds of things to pull from, even if it's not necessarily from, a role, in the industry yet. And any other place is such a great example to provide, again, who you are, so we can evaluate problem solving. Are they self-aware? Do they take leadership? Do they take responsibility? So all of that gives us little pieces of who you are and how you will act, and in the role at whatever company that you're at.
No, those are great. Those are great points. So I want to shift a little bit and talk about, how people sort of get in front of people. How do they land these roles, specifically networking? I know in my career, I've had a long career, and almost every single job I've gotten has been because of my own network. And those networks really help me, whether it's a person specifically or just saying, hey, I know somebody over at this company. This looks like a really good fit for you. So how important has it been in your own careers? How important has networking been, and what are some of the networking opportunities that you've taken advantage of?
So networking for me has always been you know, an important thing. I don't do it very well. I mean, sometimes I feel, you know, I love a good party, but you know, sometimes when you're like, you have to like talk about yourself in a forced manner, I find that very difficult. For me, it's just been within my own working career, having shown myself as a, you know, in my case, a technical lead, a technical person, and someone who people trust. You know, that kind of spreads out, and that's how I get to meet other people, you know, internally for any roles that are out there. But that clean, you know, kind of meeting who they know, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's a really great role for you at XYZ. Here at Edwards, we have multiple opportunities for networking. Certainly, as if you decide to come in as an intern first, great opportunities to do that. You be coming in as a contractor, and you know, I think we've got a lot of these you know, opportunities for women, especially to meet and greet. But honestly, I think LinkedIn is another great way to just show up and, hey, you know, I see you, you know, can we meet? Can we just email, or can we video conference? Obviously, it's really easy to do these days. So I almost feel like that's a really good way to meet people.
Yeah, and I think I probably should have said that, you know, when I think about networking, like the kind of the old school networking of going to these sort of meet and greet sort of things, that I don't those there's certainly benefits to some things, specifically for the industry that you're looking at. But LinkedIn, I can't for those students who are coming out of school, I just can't recommend highly enough that that's where my network is. So when I talk about my network, it's really on LinkedIn. So Samantha, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting question because I have mixed feelings about it. So I don't know if anyone loves doing it. I don't love doing it. You know, the traditional idea of like going to a mixer and having to, you know, force socialization, you know, I think it's an uncomfortable thing for almost everybody. You know, early in my career, it was a big part of how I got into human resources, but it also wasn't a big deal for me as I moved companies and you know, continued in my career. So it's an interesting thing. I don't want people to feel like I 100% recommend doing it and finding ways to, you know, LinkedIn, all the advice is good, but also don't feel like that's going to be a limiter, right? Because the way you show up for the interview, the way you demonstrate your capabilities, you know, who you are and the skills you bring are very powerful pieces, right? And when you're in a role and you've demonstrated your capabilities, you know, I think that's less about networking at that point because now you're proving what you bring to the table. And so you're getting the next role, you're getting the next opportunity by showing up and delivering. Yes, you know, obviously it's, you know, people who can help mentor and recommend, but, you know, taking like that responsibility and that power of what you do and who you show up as, that's a big part of it as well. Don't, you know, underestimate the basics. LinkedIn, have a good profile, you know, connect with someone wherever you can. But you know, I think it's a healthy mix.
That's great advice. You know, I loved one of the things that Blanca talked about in the previous panel about in regards to applying and not getting the job, and like how the resilience that you need to build in, especially for women and sometimes first generation college graduates. So talk a little bit about you know, your own personal experience of that, how and how important is, you know, is resilience in the job hunt.
It's very important. I mean, resilience as a trait is extremely important. One thing I specifically ask every single person is to tell me about a time when they failed. And I'm looking for acknowledgement that failure happened. And I'm looking for a demonstration of resilience, of the ability to learn from things that don't go your way. So, you know, resilience is extremely important. And if you have those occurrences, those instances, that's just an opportunity to learn and grow. And so the more you can see those as opportunities to learn and grow, and then use them to your advantage in your next endeavor, your next job interview. Sell it, right? So talk about what you did, what didn't go well, how you learned from it, and how you adapted. And if it's purely talking about, I didn't get my dream job, right? So I looked into, what other companies do a similar thing, or where else has a similar culture? What can I do next time to be more qualified? I mean, that's an amazing answer if I'm interacting with someone. Wow, this person's really knows what they want, knows who they are, knows what went wrong, and figured out how to fix it. So resilience is extremely important in many ways. So don't give up and use it, learn from it.
Awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Don't give up. Of course, nothing ever happens the first time you try it. Your interview. I mean, to me, I think it's if the interviewer or the employer can give you feedback as to maybe why I didn't get the role. I think great learning experience, right? To then kind of reassess, all right, how will I go in the next time? And, even for people who are, kind of already continuing to be in their certain part of their career, continuing to go out and interviewing, and, kind of putting your resume out there sometimes is like a good check to say like, okay, am I still marketable? Am I still marketable? Am I, all of so this is a constant thing that will go throughout your career. And, almost the easy part is the first, is your entry level position that you take. Cause, it could be very forgiving. I know it hurts but you got to learn how to, don't take it personally. This is a professional thing. How am I going to make myself better? And, it adds to your character. So it's okay.
Yeah, and I think sometimes we just get very, very hard on ourselves, especially when we're out of school and we're, some people are they need to be able to find that job. And so it's just like that level of rejection sometimes can weigh pretty heavy. And so I think we've all been there, and we know the feeling. It's a real feeling, but kind of getting back up, like you said, Samantha. And this is a great, it's almost a learning experience, I think, for those people that are just starting in their careers, to know that resilience, that you're going to have setbacks in your job. It's not just a setback in getting a job, right? When you get into that job, you're going to have those setbacks. And so I think that's super important to start developing early. One of the things that Colleen also mentioned in her discussion is that you shouldn't necessarily let that first job define you in terms of your career. So, and I think one of you had said that you kind of started out in retail or in fast food. So those. Tell me a little bit maybe about your first job and how that went in your trajectory to get to where you're at today.
So, I mean, I can start. So my first job out of college, so I was a biochemistry major, and, most of us are like, oh, we're going to go to med school, pre-med, decided that was not the road for me. So, I wanted to go into industry. Again, maybe another way that I can help patients is maybe cure cancer, be part of those kind of things. Couldn't find anything. This was like early 90s. I know I'm dating myself. There was a recession going out over there. Couldn't find that specific role. So I took a role in a manufacturing company, 24-hour manufacturing. I was in quality control. I got to do all the chemistry and stuff. It was not a glamour job, but I learned so much there. I knew what I wanted to take away from there. And I met people. I learned my own style of how I am now as a professional. And in that, I was there for about maybe just under a year or something, and really knew that, okay, this is not truly the direction I'm going. Again, I kind of knew what I wanted out of it. And when it was that right opportunity, the economy kind of opened up a little bit. Then I got to go into the first biotech company that I worked for, and was amazing, right? Then I was like, yes, now I'm in my groove, right? And so that was great, because I had another layer of experiences and people who I met, along the way, and had a lot more mentorship that was there. And at some point I got married. My husband was a pilot in the Navy. We ended up going from the East Coast to the West Coast. A lot of that work I did on the East Coast really timing was fantastic for me at that point. Everything I had done was really relevant for my next role, which was at Baxter, which is Edwards Life Sciences spun out of Baxter, and it was really, really relevant. And honestly, that role now has moved me forward because I've gained the technical trust. You know, when I left for Europe for a little while, you know, they called me and said, "Hey, when you're back, there's a great opportunity for you. We're waiting for you." It's like building that trust and that technical skill was awesome to get me to where I am today. And of course, along the way, you have your mentors, your champions, you know, all of that kind of thing. And sometimes the timing has to just be there. So that first job, yeah, it wasn't my dream job, but it got me. I knew what I needed out of that, and I got it, and I just rolled it out afterwards. So
That's awesome.
Yeah, I started at Target stores. So I was one of the candidates that got recruited through their college recruiting program. And, you know, it wasn't my dream job either, but, you know, it was a company I could be excited about as, you know, a college graduate. And it was also a company that was going to throw me to the wolves in a positive sense, right? So I was an assistant manager straight out of college doing HR, no HR experience, but it was one of those things where everything was available to me. Every opportunity, every experience was available to me. And it was get out of it what you make it, right? And so go into there, and if you take the opportunity to learn how to lead, take the opportunity how to work with others, it was probably the most learning I've had in the shortest period of time. And that was a tremendous opportunity to figure out, you know, who am I as a professional? What am I capable of? You know, when I'm thrown, you know, lemons, how do I make lemonade out of it? You know, how do I figure this out independently? And, you know, then taking the opportunity to go to another industry, you know, that's a hard thing. When you're in retail, it's really hard to get out of retail. But seeing that there was a point in time where I need to make that change or I was going to be stuck. And so that was also an important kind of aha moment of like, I transitioned out of a store role into a regional HR role, and there was only so far I could go without getting out of retail, right? And so taking that entire industry switch, that was also a great experience. It shows that I can, right? I can apply these concepts, these fundamentals around my skills to these different industries. And it's interesting because now that I'm here and, you know, supporting a biotech organization, my retail experience is actually really great because I'm at a manufacturing site. So I've got a very diverse workforce. I've got shifts that are going 24/7. I've got people who have computers, people that don't have computers. So my experience figuring out how do you communicate to a broad group of people, you know, that applies now. How do I manage a workforce? How do I, you know, strategically staff an organization that runs 24/7? That applies from retail. So you never know what the skills that you acquire, when they're going to surface back up and can bring you an advantage, right? You can differentiate yourself because you have this experience from something else completely that gives you an idea. And I think that's one thing that's helped me in my career of being really open to new ideas and being open to doing things a different way and seeing those opportunities, connect the dots, say, what if we tried this? What if we did it a little different? So, yeah, varied approach.
And I think, you know, you tied that in nicely with what you were saying a little earlier about, you know, the specific examples. I mean, it doesn't have to be specific examples, right, of the job you're applying for. It can be those, but just like you talked about, hey, I know what it's like to work in this kind of 24/7 environment. I know what it's like to have shift workers. And so having those specific examples, I think are things that we need to take away from it and not get so completely focused on the job description. Again, kind of going back to that, but some of these pieces that we've learned along the way. Do you all, since the pandemic, I know before the pandemic, there was always a concern for job seekers about gaps in their employment on their resumes. And then I don't know if that has that changed much now. And how do you all feel about when you're looking at someone's resume, if there is a gap in their resume and employment?
For myself, I mean, it's not necessarily it's not a deal breaker, because life happens, right? I had a gap in my own resume for a long time when I moved to Europe. I wasn't working, but I actually finished my MBA there. So there was a way for me to fill it a little bit, but so there was still a working gap that was there. And it didn't stop me. It didn't affect me getting back into my next role when I was ready to go and be able to do that. But for me, when I look at it, I mean, I just trying to take a holistic look at it, and if they can help talk through, I mean, I get it, people want to have families, or I've got to take care of a loved one, or we get it, and so it's not a deal breaker at all for me.
Yeah, I mean, echo what Angela said, be prepared to tell a story, right? Be prepared to present, kind of the what and the why, and maybe even sell how that kind of helps differentiate you. You've been able to overcome like needing to shift your focus to something else and being able to get back into, career mode, or taking time to, being able to know your priorities and your limits, whatever that story might be. What I do look for are patterns. So that is something that I'm going to look for. So if you have a pattern of, consistently changing an organization every 1.5 to 2 years, patterns are going to tell me more than one-offs, right? And so if you have a pattern, be prepared to tell a story around that, right? Why do I have this pattern that might be perceived?
Well, I love the idea of telling the story, because I think, and especially as women, sometimes we don't tell our story as well as we could. More women step in and out of the workplace than men because of, family obligations, and that we're still primarily the caretakers of children and that sort of thing. And so I find this a bit with sometimes our first generation graduates, is they don't feel comfortable owning their story and owning the value that they bring of their life. Blanca did a great job, I think, today of talking about, I had a hard life growing up. This was not an easy life for me. We didn't have a lot there. And I think that's a powerful story to be able to tell. So those stories that you all are talking about, I think are very important. I don't know if you have anything else to say about that, but
I think it absolutely is. It's, creating your own brand, creating your own, pitch, right? It's sales. It's what's my pitch for me, right? And so the more you can connect people emotionally and logically to why you, I think that's great. I think we all can appreciate that life is difficult sometimes, and if you show, that you're able to overcome challenging situations, I mean, all the more reason why you're a great representative for me to hire, because you dealt with something difficult and you overcame it. That resilience stuff that we talked about.
Yeah. I mean, on my side, exactly what Samantha was saying, but realize, you're trying to sell yourself, right? And we're also trying to evaluate, like, this person, they're going to work in my team for, I'm not looking for us, short time. I need longevity, right? And I'm trying to understand who this new person is that's coming in. Is it going to match, right, with my culture and my team as well? So I'm also going to try and sell that to this person, right? So this is how we operate, and this is what we do, and these are the things. And so, it's selling your brand and us selling our brand as well, to try and find the right fit. So we can't do that with just theoretical. Yes, I worked on, I fixed this instrument. It's like, okay, I need more. We can all probably do a little something, but how you do it, how you get there is actually more important than that.
that's, yeah. And sort of practicing some of that, I think, is important for folks who aren't maybe used to, if this is their first job that they're looking for, they might not be quite used to, telling that story and giving those level of details. So practicing some of that sometimes is also helpful with a friend, or, being able to tell that elevator speech. We can't underestimate that, right? So we're going to wrap up here in a minute, but I wanted something that you guys mentioned. We talked about the way that certificates and certifications could potentially help you to stand out if you don't have, some additional experience, or if you're changing careers. But you guys also mentioned internships, and I know that internships are incredibly valuable. We know this in the industry, right? But there's so many limited internship opportunities. We'd love to think to, see some of the folks that are coming through our certificate programs be able to take advantage of those internship opportunities. How would you suggest for folks that are coming through our certificate programs to be able to take advantage of those internship opportunities? And what's internships like for each one of your companies?
Yeah, I mean, so making sure you're connected with your school and you're looking for in a timely way, looking for those opportunities. So companies have learned that we need to be recruiting starting December, January, getting ready for internships. So when people are reaching out in April, they might be a little bit late to the game. So I'd say definitely be thinking about it early and often and connecting with schools and resources to say, when are the roles going to be posted, make sure you're getting in there as soon as possible. So that you can be a candidate for consideration, right? Especially if the numbers are limited. I know we only do about 7 a summer, and so the roles are limited. So make sure you're getting your name in as early as possible. Even if once you get kind of a recruiter contact, ask them when are the internships going to be posted. Even if you're working directly with the company, do that as well. As far as our actual internship, it's 10 to 12 weeks depending on the individual. We do take individuals as early as, sophomores. So, if you get in kind of early, you might be a candidate for a multi-year, internship, which just increases your exposure to different areas of the company. And, once you have your foot in, for one summer, then maybe you're more likely to be able to get a second round out of it. So if that's something you're interested in, no reason not to start early.
Yeah, I mean, just what Samantha said, I think, the biggest collaboration should be between the school and, our different employers around, because it's just another different road and, selection process, et cetera. And, one is you as a student, right, should click into those opportunities for the internships, because I don't know that people necessarily publicize them so much. Maybe again, LinkedIn is another place to look in for an internship, but I feel like, the school is really there to help bridge that connection with all of the different companies that are around here. And I know that everybody's got now these internship programs, certainly for the summertime, but co-ops are another thing too. I don't know if that's another option. I know we sometimes have co-op opportunities, but that's based on a relationship with a school. So I feel like it's, linking on with university relations, whatever that is, in every company with, the actual school is probably a first start, and then those opportunities can just really blossom if you talk more about them.
We're getting ready at Biocom Institute to roll out our new career hub, and we're hoping that we can start to have a repository from our industry companies for internships, so that we can have folks to be able to go on and check what internship opportunities might be available to them, because so many first generation college graduates or students who might not have the networking connections already might not know, just like you were saying, like it's hard to know to hunt down those internships. So we're really hoping to be able to do that. So if there are students listening today, we're going to be trying to work with some of the companies to be able to get their internships, at least maybe a link to their own site of where you all are hosting those. So be on the lookout for that. And if you guys are interested in having that posting on there too, that would be fantastic, because part of the things that we've seen as we work with in the high school level with some of the Title I schools and some of the underserved schools within our region is that they're the ones that don't know about, they're the ones that don't understand the importance of these internship opportunities. And so helping them to have access to those, at least to know where they're at, is I think going to be is important. So we highly encourage folks to take a look at the companies that you think you might want to work for, and then see where those internship opportunities might be at.
And can I just add in one other opportunity. We've created a collaboration with Cal State Fullerton to be part of, like, maybe their senior capstone, if you will. And so that's another way for students to come into industry, work on a project that is relevant for us, and they still get an education. And then they get to, hey, you know, like, wow, we've got an internship. It's another way to find out about these other opportunities. Or they're a senior and they're looking for a new job. And if you can make an impression, you know, you could get hired right on the spot, right? So it's another thing within your course. If there's, you know, senior projects that work along with, or junior projects that work along with industry, is another way to get connected and get that experience for next level.
Fantastic. Anjali, I don't know if we have any further questions, but if we don't, I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over to you to wrap us up. Thank you so much to the panel. Was there any questions?
Yeah, I don't see any questions. If you do, just go ahead and type it in the chat real quick. But meanwhile, I just wanted to say thank you again to the moderators and speakers today. I think you've shared a lot of valuable information. I don't know about you, not only for careers in biotechnology, but careers in general. And I want to thank you for all your advice and personal experience, sharing your personal experiences with the participants today. And then, as I mentioned earlier, this was brought to you by the CSU Biomanufacturing Consortium, which we just launched this spring. And I want to thank our partners at Cal State Fullerton and Cal State LA, as well as Biocom, including our subject matter experts, especially to Crystal Moan, who is the Associate Program Developer, to Jennifer Custodio, who is the Program Developer at Cal State LA, as well as Letitia Lara, who is the Program Coordinator at Cal State Fullerton. I see that Dr. Sajil James is also here today, and all the subject matter experts who help to shape the curriculum that include Phenomenex, Kite Pharma, Zencor, and all of the panelists here today, because I'm sure we'll be reaching out to you as well for additional feedback on that. And so with that said, I just want to let you know that registration is open, and please feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions at all. We are planning on doing some additional webinars coming soon. And so that will be in November. So we'll do another Biocom presentation, I think focusing on supply chain and biomanufacturing, and maybe later on in the year, something related to hiring veterans in biomanufacturing. So please keep a lookout for all of our announcements. With that said, thank you again for participating. And this will be recorded and we will be sharing it on our webpage. Thank you.